Religion and politics in contemporary India. Welcome to all of you to this very brief session in which we look at an important and somewhat worrying aspect of how India as a modern political entity is developing. I'm sure this is of interest not merely to those who live in India and not only to people of Indian origin living abroad, but to all people who are interested in the health and wholeness of politics and therefore also of the viability of human welfare. Perhaps the most significant aspect of contemporary India is that here politics and religion have become one. Or politics is now very successfully, effectively and gainsomely recast in the mold of politics. Religion is done like politics is done like religion. This is obvious enough if you regard the fact that the foremost political personage of India, the leader of the ruling party, Bharatiya Janata Party or BJP, is being deified, and he is seen not merely as a political leader, but as one in whom the political and religious authority of the majority community in India, namely Hindus, is located. In order to project this, he became the chief religious functionary at the consecration of the newly constructed impressive Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, breaking all traditions that applied to this very sacred process. It's the first time in the history of Hinduism, which spans across several millennia, that a lay person who has absolutely no claim to priestly authority becomes the chief consecrant of the deity in the Ram Mandir at Ayodhya. This is not an accident, but an integral part of a process that's been going on for some time to invest Sri Narendra Modi with the image of divinity. For example, a political slogan coined a few years ago, which became current throughout India, which was repeated ad nauseum through the length and breadth of India, is that with Modi, everything is possible. Now, Christians would readily recognize this as the affirmation they make about God. With God, nothing is impossible. So, by implication, divinity is superimposed on the political image of Modi, and I can give a large number of other nuances to this process of fusing religion and politics into one to constitute an unrivaled center of authority, which is presumed to be unshakable in the face of any political opposition or evidence of failure in governance. Now, what is the problem here? And this is something I want us to understand. And I'm going to develop our thoughts or contents of this video in such a manner as to also afford some insight into how religion is organized and how that particular mode of organizing religion runs counter to what humanity has achieved in terms of rationality, free thinking, commitment to truth, and to human dignity over a long period of time. I request that my viewers be not prejudiced on account of what I have just now said. If you will patiently listen to what will be said henceforth, you will understand the relevance of what I have in mind. Now, all of us know that religion functions on faith. But the problem is not with faith, but with how faith is understood or interpreted. There are two completely different interpretations or ideas of faith. In the first instance, which is a religious interpretation of faith, faith is blind belief in whatever is presented from a certain center of authority or tradition. Tradition itself becomes an aspect of authority without questioning, and even in the teeth of very strong evidence to the contrary. For example, if from the religious point of view it is advocated that the earth is flat or that the sun goes round the moon, then you are duty bound to believe the same simply because in your religious scriptures or from the centers of religious authority, it is insisted that that is the case. No matter what scientific evidence that exists, no matter what experiential proofs there arise from time to time, as a religious person who is bound to have faith, you are required to disbelieve this contrary evidence and stay stuck in the pre-modern notion that the earth is flat and that the sun goes around the moon. Now, when the same idea is brought into politics, the problem is that this gives to political leaders the leeway to manufacture falsehoods at will and to thrust it on the people, who are then assumed to be duty bound to consume uncritically whatever deadly cocktail of falsehood and half-truths is dished out to them. Let me give you two instances to make this clear. It is election season in Kerala. The national general election is in process. A few days ago, the Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi, in a speech delivered in a certain small city in Rajasthan, said that the Congress party, if voted to power, will snatch the wealth of all Hindus and reallocate it entirely to the Muslim community. And as the basis for this allegation, reference was made to a speech made by the former Prime Minister of India, Dr. ᴛʀᴜᴛ G'ꜱ, way back in 2006, where in a particular context he said that the development of a country must be conjoined with commitment to distributive justice, so that the social health of a society is not jeopardized by its political development. If wealth is unequally distributed, and that results in aggravating social inequalities, the health of that society will be undermined. And therefore, it's particularly important to be mindful of the welfare of the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, the OBCs, meaning other backward communities, children, women, and minorities. He, in fact, mentioned the minorities as the last of the 6 categories that he mentioned in the speech. He said that they also must be deemed as having a claim to the fruits of development. That was all that he did. What Sri Narendra Modi did was to leave out all the other 5 sections from Sri ᴛʀᴜᴛ G'ꜱ's list of categories, namely scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, children and women, and he focused entirely on the religious minorities. The story does not end there. He reduced the minorities. There are 5 designated national minorities, but he reduced the minorities to just one community, and that's the Muslim community. And not only that, he distorted the statement of the Prime Minister, who did not say that the wealth of the Hindus must be snatched from them and the same to be allocated exclusively to Muslims. He didn't say that anyone's wealth should be snatched. He only said that the fruits of development must be distributed in such a manner that those who are today in the, in a state of underdevelopment are not left behind, and that they are also empowered to participate in the festival of national development. Look at the gross and complete distortion of facts. And yet, this is supposed to be lapped up uncritically by a whole nation of 145 crores or 1.45 billion people. And unfortunately, millions and millions of people will simply lap it up. From this instance alone, you can understand the harm that blind faith does. Blind faith which militates against the evidence that's presented to it. And if evidence is presented to it, one becomes duty bound to distrust the evidence rather than the falsehood against which the evidence is marshalled. The second statement that the Prime Minister made, this time in another state, the state of Madhya Pradesh, which is also a politically crucial state, is that if the Congress party or the India alliance of which the Congress party is the dominant constituent is voted back to power, they will put the Babri Masjid's lock on the Ayodhya temple, again playing up the fire of Hindu insecurity, using fear as a weapon of political control. Now, there is absolutely no foundation, no basis of any kind for this allegation. I have been monitoring the statements, official, personal, etc., of the Congress party and the leaders belonging to it. There is no hint to that effect. The Congress party has published its manifesto in connection with the ongoing elections. There is absolutely no reference to it. Out of the blue, falsehood is manufactured and foisted on the people to activate and aggravate their fear, their distrust, their animosity, in order to convert all that into electoral gains. And the people of India, Hindus in particular, are assumed to be duty bound to lap up this lie and to fall in line. Now, my main objective here is not to criticize what's being done in electoral politics, which not only in India but all over the world is conducted on the basis of expediency. My intention here is also to invite young people whom I address in this video. The substance of this video is being formulated keeping largely the youth of the world in mind. To examine, to encourage them, invite them, to plead with them, to re-examine their relationship with religion, and to alert them to the fact that there is a duty, a very sacred duty, to be skeptical of a great deal that's passed off in the name of religion and God. Frankly speaking, God is innocent of much that is being bandied back and forth in His name. Religion itself is a dumping ground of the falsehoods that people, particularly the priestly class, manufacture from time to time. And this is the reason why the American sociologist of some repute, his name is Peter Berger, B-E-R-G-E-R, P-E-T-E-R, B-E-R-G-E-R, in his work titled The Heretical Imperative, The Heretical Imperative by Peter Berger. He argues that when, and this is something that before him Paul Tillich argued in the 30s and 40s of the last century, the 40s and 50s of the last century. Paul Tillich, a theologian of German origin who fled Hitler's Nazi Germany, sought political asylum in America, and became quite distinguished as a theologian of great substance. Now, he also pointed out, as Berger did later, that when religion decays, religion becomes an enemy of the people. At that time, believers if they are truly believers, have a duty to be specially vigilant against whatever the merchants of religion advocate. Peter Berger gives it more precise scientific language, the language of sociology, and he says that when religious traditions deteriorate, and they deteriorate when their ethical core degenerates, he says the religious people then come under the imperative or the duty, if you like, to be heretical, to be unbelievers. That's this simple substance of the heretical imperative. The imperative to be heretical. The word heresy is of Latin origin. Haeresis simply means I choose for myself. So, from the perspective of the authorities or the custodians of religion, individuals claiming the right and the freedom to think for themselves is unthinkable. They think that it's a crime perpetrated against God. Whereas the capacity to think for oneself and the freedom to think for oneself are both given by God. And yet, from the perspective of the priestly class of the world, the priestly classes of the world, they are the same in all religions. Religions may vary superficially, but I can assure you that the priestly class operates exactly the same way, irrespective of the religions they apply. So, from their point of view, people exercising God-given talents, the God-given talent of the capacity to think logically, that was not invented by Satan or by some communists or rationalists. It is God's gift to human beings, undoubtedly, if you believe in God at all. And the freedom to do so, both are God's gifts. According to the priestly classes of the world, using these God-given talents and in fact duties is heretical, is impious, is rebellion against God. Even this nonsense you are required to believe if you are a believer or if you have faith. I tell you today that that's not faith, that denotes a total absence of faith. Or this is faith or a degraded form of faith advocated only by the custodians and the merchants of religion. Jesus Christ had nothing to do with this kind of faith. The faith that Jesus advocated was a forward-looking faith. Faith in relation not only to what has happened in the past, but also in relation to what is happening now and more importantly what is going to happen. And this must be underlined, the responsibility of each believer in what's going to happen. For the simple reason that God has chosen partnership with human beings as the sole model of engaging with the world He Himself created. The gracious paradox of God's dealing with the world at large is that even though He is the sovereign authority of the whole of creation, He has yet in His humility, His meekness, in His love, in His justice, chosen to be partner with human beings and to act only in partnership with human beings in engaging with the world. And therefore, the role that each one of us plays is of extreme significance. From the religious point of view, we have only one role, and that is to believe blindly whatever has happened in the past or whatever we are told happened in the past, and the meaning of whatever is supposed to have happened in the past. And the meaning is known only to the priestly class, and they are in the singular position to tell us exactly what happened in the past, the meaning of what happened in the past, and therefore what is real today and what is not real today. And this does serious harm to the development of your personality, the development of your mental and spiritual faculties. If you surrender yourself to this process of degrading and disabling the human element, what is precious, beautiful and creative in the human, then you do yourself and your Creator a serious disservice. Jesus' idea of faith, on which now I must spend a little time, is somewhat adequately explained or contained in the definition of faith found in the first verse of the 11th chapter of the letter to Hebrews, which is as follows: faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Now, if you merely look at the words contained in this definition, you will see that faith has more to do with what's going to happen than what has happened in the past. The religion that the priestly class creates and maintains and inflicts on you and me is a purely backward-looking religion, and the sum and substance of that entirely backward-looking religion is denoted by the word orthodoxy. Orthodoxy is then defined erroneously as subscribing to a correct and authentic faith. No, I'm afraid that is not true. Orthodoxy, for all practical purposes, means endorsing living entirely by dead faith, faith entirely of the past, relating to materials or realities that have no bearing on your life today and tomorrow. It's like living in a museum. It has no relevance to you. It holds no prospect, no advantage, no sense to anyone. Absolutely not. It is like trying to milk a dead cow, a cow that died thousands of years ago. It's as futile and as absurd as that. So, faith is the assurance of things hoped for. You know pretty well that what you hope for pertains only to the future. You can't say that I hope that, Jesus lived 2000 years ago. I hope that Jesus died for the world 2000 years ago. You can't hope. You know that he did so. That's not hope. That's knowledge. So faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Things not seen are things that don't exist. For God's sake, that's so clear enough. So what doesn't exist cannot belong to the past. So that is why Jesus says, when the Spirit comes to you, it will lead you into all truth, all truth. A lot remains to be revealed, a lot remains to be found out, a lot remains to be experienced. And youth belong to that period in our life when this privilege to explore, to encounter what is new, what is fresh, what's not yet manifest is a great excitement, and deservedly so. And that's the reason why, I don't know about other religions, Christianity is a very youthful, dynamic and vital faith. Jesus was so young, movingly young, when he began his ministry and when he gave his life as a ransom for the sins of the world. Now all this is completely blacked out, and only some dogmas and doctrines belong to the distant past, invented by human beings, without any explanation as to how these dogmas and doctrines connect your day-to-day life today, here and now. The whole religious baggage is thrust on you, and you're required to accept it in blind faith without the duty and the right to ask questions in order to be satisfied as to the relevance of what is being dumped on you. This is not the will of God for you. This is simply your subjugation to the will of man, and often the will of men who are far inferior to you, will of men who have no foresight, no foresight, no vision, and indeed no concern for the welfare and progress of others. So, when a people are captivated and subjugated to the dynamics of this perverse, false, superstitious, blind faith, in which authority is inflicted and imposed on you based on something that is supposed to have happened a long time ago, which is then ascribed to a God who is still living, who is operating in history, a God of today, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, a God who still continues to operate, a God who exercises supreme and sovereign authority over the affairs of the world. We must see through the bristling contradictions in all these formulations. If God is alive, then He is alive today and He is a force to reckon with. In fact, He is the sovereign authority. And if God is immortal, He cannot die today. He will be there forever, and therefore the future is in the hands of God. And the past cannot be used in order to freeze the future and to forestall the way God operates. After all, doesn't the Bible tell us that the ways of God are mysterious? If the ways of God are mysterious, then who can tell us precisely how it is going to operate tomorrow and day after? So, in contradistinction to this dead faith which subsists entirely on what is supposed to have happened in the past, Jesus presents the living faith. Faith that impacts your life today. Faith that makes a lot of sense to your life today and tomorrow. And therefore, Jesus emphasized, and I'm sure Peter Berger was inspired by the model of Jesus Christ, otherwise he wouldn't have derived his idea of the heretical imperative. If you look at the life and ministry of Jesus Christ, most remarkably, this might surprise you, Jesus' life, his public ministry, his spiritual life is marked as much by unbelief as by faith. In his case, unbelief becomes the main ingredient of his spiritual authenticity. Please remember these words. Jesus is spiritually authentic because of his unbelief as well. I'm not saying entirely because of his unbelief. I said unbelief as well. He believed in a lot of things, but he did not believe even in the things that he derived from or accepted from the past as the past understood it. We know that Jesus transformed everything he touched. So even when he accepted the narratives and the insights of the past, he modified them. And this is not the occasion for me to examine the extent of that modification with respect to every instance in a detailed manner. Maybe that's a substance for another video. But one thing is absolutely certain, and you will notice it if you read the four Gospels and if you have a working knowledge of what the Old Testament prescribed, particularly the priestly books prescribe. Jesus questioned every one of the dogmas of the Judaic priestly class. He questioned all of their religious practices and customs. And particularly, he questioned the authority of the priestly class, which was imposed on the people in the form of a large number of religious laws and obligations. You know, the Pharisees, the religious authorities of Jesus' times, had a particular knack for multiplying laws, and laws are multiplied in order to minimize human freedom. The more laws there are, the less is the extent of your freedom. So what did Jesus do? When the Pharisees were busy teaching the scores and scores of religious laws in their minutest detail, Jesus brushed all of them aside and said, "A new law I give to you, a new commandment I lift to you." And what is the new commandment? Very simple. Love one another. Can you love one another? You will not see the priestly class urging you to love one another. And when Jesus says love one another, he does not mean merely those who are within the same religious group or sectarian group or denominational enclave. He means all those who are in the human family anywhere in the world. You belong to the family of God. You are God's children. You are not the children of CSI Church, Marthoma Church, Catholic Church, though from your birth onwards you are taught this nonsense. You are not the children of any church or denomination or abomination. You are the children of God, the Gospel of John chapter 1 verse 12, 11 and 12 if you like. He came to his own received him not, but to all who received him and believed in his name, to them he gave the authority to become the children of God. Who are you? You are the children of God. And therefore, when Jesus says love one another, that is a commandment that applies to the children of God. Everyone universally is potentially a child of God. And this itself is a realization that no religion is large enough, gracious enough to understand and accept. Therefore, Jesus prescribed two spiritual duties. One is the duty to love. Love unconditionally. Love without limits. Love without boundaries. Love without preconditions. Love without labels. Love everyone. Love one another. Love even your enemies. That's the ultimate reach of love. Greater love than this no man can imagine than loving one's enemies. The second duty that Jesus enjoins on us is the duty to be skeptical. Will you believe it? I'm sure nobody has said this to you. Nobody will say this to you. Because this is the truth. And religion cannot stand much truth. Religion is not strong enough to stand truth. Else Jesus would not have been crucified. Right? Why was Jesus crucified? Because he manufactured lies? Oh, no. Those who manufacture lies and foist them on people are always rewarded. They are applauded. They are hailed as heroes and kings. Only those who bear witness to truth are crucified, eliminated, liquidated, or as stigmatized as the enemy of the people. Because man cannot stand much truth. One of my favorite novelists is that Polish novelist who became a naturalized citizen of Great Britain. His name is Joseph ᴛʞᴜᴛᴜ Conrad. Joseph ᴛʞ̈ᴜᴜ Conrad, in short named as Joseph Conrad. And his famous novel published in 1900, it's titled Lord Jim. There is a character in that novel which says, man is not strong enough to stand truth. Therefore, he needs to live in a world of dreams, unrealities, because we are not strong enough. That's very true. And yet Jesus confronts us with the duty to be truthful. And my dear friends, take it from me. Take it from me. Oh, don't take it from me. Take it from Jesus. Being truthful is the most dangerous thing in the world. This is something that no religion can brook. That's why religions of the world invented, particularly Christianity and Islam, to some extent Judaism as well, invented the idea of heresy. The theme of heresy is not as strong in other religions. And unfortunately, these three religions which swear by the truth also became the religions that oppose truth, tooth and nail. I know that many people will be upset by what I am saying. Sure enough, it is the common feature of religions to oppose truth and to kill truth if possible. In Hindu mythology, there is a parallel instance which becomes the legendary substance of Onam, the national festival of Kerala origin, where a king called Mahabali is pushed down to the nether world, to hell, simply because he tried to be truthful, just and fair in his governance, righteous governance, for which he is punished. Punished by whom? Punished by gods. Isn't that shocking? No, it's not shocking, because that's how the religious imagination operates. Never mind in which culture, which religion, which clime, which age, which epoch, it's all the same. Religion cannot stand truth. And therefore Jesus enjoins on us, recommends to us the duty to be heretical, the duty to be skeptical. Do not believe anything and everything that is dished out to you in the name of God, in the name of religion. Religion is a poor custodian of God's truth. Each one of us has to assume the responsibility for discovering, seeking and finding the truth in its purity. That's why Jesus said in Matthew 7, chapter 7, verse 7, seek and you shall find. What is it that we have to seek? Seek the truth. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Then he says, seek. Seek that truth. Seek that way. Seek that life. Find it and then bear witness to it. That is the substance of your life. That is a secret of your authenticity and personality. That is the only foundation on which you can build a dignified and meaningful life. And I sincerely wish I had known this when I was young. It took me a long, long time of painful, assiduous seeking to come around to this truth. I lost a lot because I did not know. Nobody told me. But I'm still grateful to God for giving me the opportunity to discover these fundamentals, though it had to involve a very long and painful process of seeking and finding. But better late than never. And it's because I discovered these truths too late in my life, and the price I've had to pay for it is too exorbitant, that I'm filled with this eagerness to share these insights with young people, because I have great faith in them. Unlike older people who find it so very hard to change their ways and their outlook, young people are fresh. They're like a freshly blown flower. They can change, they can accept new insights. They can effect course corrections, and they can switch to a higher gear of life and thought. And therefore, I submit these insights in humility, in affection, and in accountability to God. Affection for you and accountability towards God, with the prayer that you may meditate on these simple insights and make what sense God in His wisdom gives you the grace to make of it. Thank you for your kind attention, and may each one of you be blessed abundantly. Please discuss these insights with your friends. Share it with others. Let's create a culture of thinking together, rather than becoming a herd of cattle that's being driven hither and thither by a class of people who have absolutely no understanding which is spiritually valid, or not even the good intentions to do what they can to ensure the well-being of others. Thank you, and goodbye for the present.